Hello everyone and welcome back to Through the Pages with Dee. It is Friday the 31st of May, and today, being the end of the month, we are going to honour this month because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. I myself suffer with mental health issues, and I know a lot of other people that do, so this is something that means a lot to me. It's very important that we acknowledge mental health and that we try as a society to help each other and be there for each other as much as we can be. So I've decided to pick some books that maybe through a tough time might help you. It might be an idea for you to try the book out, and it may make a difference to you. The actual story may brighten your day. It may give you some pause for thought and make you see something that potentially could be thought about differently. And it may also do the most important thing, which is value yourself and not give yourself too much of a hard time. So, the first book is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And it may sound odd and it may seem weird as a book relating to mental health. It doesn't necessarily relate to mental health. What it does is it gives us a tale of hope and a tale of friendship and a tale of love. And those are elements that you need when you are in a mental health crisis or when you are just having a down day and you maybe need uplifting. The other book I've picked, which means a lot to me because this really does talk of friendship and people being there for you when you need them most, is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames. This is quite possibly the most friendship-driven, loyalty, love, blind loyalty that I've ever read, where these guys on the front are a band of warriors and they've fought for years together and then they kind of retire, but because one of the characters' daughter goes missing, they band back together to find his daughter. And there isn't really many questions asked as to why or what for. They just value the friendship and do what's necessary. But they meet characters along the way who too have this beautiful relationship with each other. Two particular brothers in this book who are called Gregor and Dane. And Gregor is blind and Dane does this thing where, to make the world beautiful for Gregor, he describes everything the opposite of it being nasty or grisly or dirty or just something that Gregor wouldn't necessarily want to see. He literally makes the world a beautiful place for Gregor. And Gregor is such a beautiful spirit because of Dane doing that. That to me is quite possibly one of the most beautiful relationships I've ever read. So this book massively had an impact on me. It made me laugh. It made me cry. But in a good way, not in a way where, you know, it's going to make you worse. It's so uplifting that this is a book I would reach for if I was in the place where I needed something like this. It's just such an amazing book, and Nicholas Ames has done such a fantastic job of crossing laughter and love with tears. He's done such a great job of that. And the characters are so approachable, they're so normal that you can build this relationship with them where you just want to be friends with them. You want to be in that circle. You want to help with the quest of finding the daughter. You want to just be with this group of people because they're so amazing. And yes, they fight and they get into battles, but it's not about that. It's about that they have each other's back. And that in life is what is hugely needed when you have issues with mental health. So those are my two books. But I also just wanted to give a quote from one of my very favourite authors, which is Charles Dickens. And the quote is from The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. And it goes like this. The sun himself is weak when he first rises, and gathers strength and courage as the day gets on. So this serves us as a reminder that even our moments of vulnerability and uncertainty, we have the potential for greatness. Then I also decided to reach out to some friends and see what they had to say about their book choices. And I was overwhelmed with the generosity of my friends. So, here are some great booktubers to give you some more potential ideas of books that can maybe help through a tough time that you might be going through. So, without further ado, Jos, roll VT.
What's up? This Darko, Kindles and Kicks, and Bestie, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in your mental health May video. So if I had to talk about one book that helped me get through some serious mental health challenges, I could not. But I can pick one book series, and that series is Harry Potter. There have been several times in my life where Harry Potter was about the only thing I lived for. There is a very precarious balance a lot of people play throughout their life, and that balance is living and not really wanting to live, and wishing you die, but not quite willing to take your own life. And I have been in that place on a few occasions throughout my life where I got sick of living, I got tired of living, but I wasn't quite to the point that I was suicidal. But I hated life. And I hated all that it was doing to me and all the challenges, physical, emotional, and psychological I was going through because it was exhausting. And during a lot of those times, the only thing that gave me solace was Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And reading about their adventures and learning about all the wizards and sorcerers and warlocks at Hogwarts and feeling like I was actually a part of one of the schools there and hating Snape and loving Dumbledore. Like, these things saved my life. Because in Harry Potter, I found a place outside of reality, a place of escape. I'm not sure I'd still be here if I didn't have that place to escape to. Because sometimes life is effed up. And the hardest thing about life, unfortunately, is living it. Because at times it feels like you can't. But thank God for Harry Potter and all the other books and series since then that have saved me from taking my own life or giving up on life. Because without literature, particularly fantasy, I don't know what I do. So, Bestie, there you have it. I really appreciate this question. It took no thought. Harry Potter means everything to me. And thank all the characters of Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling for giving me reasons to live on so many occasions. Peace.
Dee asked me to talk about a book that helped me through a dark time. Cheers. Now, as you can tell, I found new coping mechanisms for, darker moments in my life. But what about a time when even I, out here in the grim dark places of Germany, wasn't allowed to buy alcohol because I was under the age of 16, which is our legal drinking age? Well, I had to read, sort of. So this is the story I want to tell. As some of you may know, I'm blind, but I wasn't always blind. So I started reading books like everyone else with, pages and stuff. And at some point, I wasn't able to do that anymore because my eyesight got worse and worse and worse. Now, as it happened, that also was the time when I had to leave to go to a boarding school for blind people. And all these things came together. But the worst part was I was in the middle of the Silmarillion for my first time, and that's when I couldn't read it anymore. And then I had to leave home and go there. And yeah, that is when my mother, who's hopefully not watching this, made the great sacrifice of actually reading those final pages, that last couple of chapters or whatever it was, narrating them on tape, creating my own private audiobooks, because at the time that thing wasn't available in audiobook, at least not for me, and giving me these tapes, which I could listen to when I was in my new place and so forth. And yeah, I think that was like the beginning for a lot of things for me, because it helped me finish the Silmarillion, which, everyone should do. And then it also was like the first thing when I, decided to buy my first heavy metal record, which was a Blind Guardian album, all based on the Silmarillion. And from Blind Guardian, we obviously went deeper into heavy metal and deeper into fantasy books, and obviously into drinking beer, which kind of goes with the territory. So all these things kind of started with that one point, which, was definitely a big change in life for me. And it, in this case, I guess the book is the Silmarillion. But I think, as so often in these situations, it's not just the book, but it's also very much the situation around it. And yeah, that's the story I wanted to tell. And yeah, thanks for asking me to come on here. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Britton here, also known as Smoky Dude, and Dee from Through the Pages with Dee had generously asked me to talk about a book that really helped me through a tough time when I was having a really tough mental health crisis or just a crisis in general, and I had to think about it for a minute, but I finally decided on A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis. Now, before some of you start snickering, I do think that C.S. Lewis is very good at what he does. I like most of the books that I've read from him. Sadly, I do not own A Grief Observed. I own a lot of his other books. I own his space trilogy. I own a lot of his philosophical works. I own the Screw Tape Letters. I don't actually own A Grief Observed, but it's probably my favorite of C.S. Lewis's books. It's his most personal, but it's also one that he wrote to help others during their time of grief because his wife had recently passed away. And it's also, a lot of the book is him kind of questioning himself and questioning his purpose and questioning the purpose that God has for him. And it's a really sad book, but it's also a very uplifting book as well because it really showed me during a time of crisis that I wasn't alone. And it's always nice to be reminded of that when you are going through a really terrible time. C.S. Lewis, I think, is a really good writer for the most part. I really like how he turns phrases and just the way he describes how he feels having lost somebody who mattered so much to him is really heartbreaking. And it's a beautiful book. I think A Grief Observed is a really good one to read if you're struggling. Also, and on the other side, because C.S. Lewis is known as a Christian, there's also, I hope Dee doesn't mind that I have a second book, but Mortality by Christopher Hitchens. I'm a bit mixed on Christopher Hitchens. He certainly has emboldened the more edgy atheist crowd, and I don't love much of his atheist commentary. I find a lot of it's really obnoxious. His literary criticism is good, but I think Mortality is really a great book. He's a great writer. I mean, I've never denied that. I think he's really good at explaining himself in a coherent way, and that's also a book that really stuck with me during a tough time. So those are the books I got. Thanks, Steve, for having me on.
Time in my life when I was low. Okay. I had just moved back from LA to my hometown in Texas. And, to get your feet under you, to get started again, I was moving back in with my mom. I was a 30-year-old man. Everything I owned that I had brought back with me from LA is on my mom's front lawn. I'm moving it into the spare bedroom. I was pretty low. I was pretty low. Starting over at the age of 30. I'm not a happy camper. And kind of right away, some friends of mine called and said, hey, we're opening a show. Come on, we got a part for you. Come on down, come to the theater, do this show with us. So I went down, and it's like the first read-through. This woman walks in. And, I mean, the kind of woman that stops time as you watch her walk by, right? And we started to get to know each other. And she was fresh out of college, fresh out of a theater program. And she was like, what kind of books do you read? Things like that come up when you're getting to know someone. What movies do you love? What books do you read? And she had lost her love for reading. She had read so many scripts, so many plays, so many books getting through college that she had lost her love of story. So I said, wait, I can't let that stand. So I picked up what I knew to be a magical book, a book that's going to take you back to your childhood when you just discover a story and you discover how much you love it and you discover how magical it can be and the doors it can open and the things it can show you that you never thought could exist. And I started reading this magical book to her out loud. I was doing all the voices. I was doing my best to impress her. And what can I say? She recaptured her love of story to the point where once she left theater, she went back to being a writer. And we've been together 30 years now, and she's made all my dreams come true. And I'm not sure if it would have happened at all if not for this magical book.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Mary.
And we're Book Buds.
And fun fact, we work in mental health, serving individuals with severe mental illness.
So our book choice is Every Day by David Levithan. It's a series of books, 3 novels, and 1 novella.
And this story is about A, who every day wakes up in a different body, in a different form. And his goal is to not get attached to the life that he's in because he's basically hijacking their body. He doesn't want to cause any harm to their day or their routine and just get through it without leaving a mark. But one day he meets Rhiannon, who he instantly falls in love with and decides that he needs human connection in his life. And so then the question becomes, can somebody love just the soul or the essence of the person inside, despite what the outside might look like? Because it's changing every day. So can a connection be formed with that being from the inside?
So this is our choice for Mental Health Month because A feels so alone, but is starting to really make connections. A is a fluid being, but embraces who they are and finds the beauty within rather than what's on the outside.
Yeah, it's a really powerful book. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is J.R. Carroll. And I am so glad that Dee asked me to be a part of the Mental Health May video that she's putting together. And she wanted to know, what is a book that really helped my mental health? Now, I don't have a specific singular book, and as I am a sci-fi fantasy channel, you can imagine it was probably a fantasy book, and indeed it was. It was The Dresden Files. Now, when I came into the Dresden Files, I was at a point in my life where really all I was doing was working, paying bills, going to sleep, and doing it all over again. And life just kind of was getting kind of mundane and felt like I was running on a treadmill. And my best friend introduced me to the Dresden Files, and it just completely enthralled me and rejuvenated my love of writing. And Jim Butcher and the Dresden Files themselves led to me publishing 3 books, and writing a 4th, and I'm almost done with the 5th. So it really has changed everything. Without the Dresden Files, I wouldn't have these books written. I wouldn't have a YouTube channel probably. I wouldn't have met so many great people. So thank you, Jim Butcher. Thank you to the Dresden Files. And this is a great thing that fantasy can do for your mental health, is take you out of your normal everyday life and sit you down in a fantastic world where you can just relax and enjoy the journey. Thank you, Dee. Back to you.
Hello folks, it's Usman from Bards and Books, and I have been asked by Dee from Through the Pages with Dee to participate in Mental Health May and talk about a book that has really touched me during a period where I was going through some stuff, some severe mental health stuff. Dragons of Spring Dawning by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. This is book 3 in the Dragonlance Chronicles, a staple in the fantasy community. If you haven't read this, these books are heavily based on the D&D campaigns, so you got a crew of different characters. They go through some very plot-heavy circumstances and fight their way out, that kind of thing. But the books just dive really deeply into more character work, more like profound ideas, some poetic stuff. I mean, there's lots of poems in here, some interesting philosophical stuff, especially this book, which is why I picked this one. While it isn't my favorite in the trilogy, my favorite was Dragons of Winter Night, this one really struck a nerve with me, I guess partly due to the fact that I was going through some stuff at the time, like I said, but it just hits differently. It's got some of those really deep, meaningful poems and character work. You get a lot of the villains' POVs in this book particularly. And there is a quote that I want to read to you from here, which gave me a bit of a profound experience, you can say. The darkness might conquer, but it could never extinguish hope. And though one candle or many might flicker and die, new candles would be lit from the old. Thus hope's flame always burns, lighting the darkness until the coming of day. That quote in particular hit me pretty hard, and it just showed me the importance of, having hope and having faith, and how important of a role that might play, whether you know it or not. So that can really help you through some troubling times. There's many other quotes in here, many other poems that might hit home with you as well. So this I would recommend for a lot of reasons, not just the reasons you would think. It's more than just a fun adventure romp, and you should definitely check out Dragonlance Chronicles.
Hi, my name is Evie. My channel is She Was Only Evie, and Dee has asked me to share a work to bring visibility to and awareness of and honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. And the book that I've chosen is Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. And yes, I am aware this is actually a short story collection. This entire collection is truly thought-provoking and very, it encourages self-reflection and rumination and that type of thing. One story in particular in this collection is called The Story of Your Life. It's alluded to in the title of the collection. And it's not actually the story itself that helped me through a challenging time. It was actually the film adaptation of the story, which is Arrival, that stars Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. And it is about a woman who you find out literally in the first scenes that she loses her daughter to cancer. In the story, obviously with adaptations things change, but in the story it's through an accident. But the way that both the adaptation and the story itself explore choice and free will and determination and just living a life with whatever comes your way really helped me in a years-long experience that's still ongoing, where, you know, unfortunately I have dealt with infertility and everything that comes with that. When I saw the film Arrival, the very next day I suffered a miscarriage. And that experience, and subsequently the story that comes, that was its source, brought me so much comfort and a sense of relief in that it is nothing that I did or did not do, and it is just something that happened. And it's not something that I can control. And it just really, really helped me. It really helped me. And whether or not you've gone through that experience before, and I would say whether or not you've gone through that experience before, or you know someone who's gone through that experience, or even just something, a totally different life experience where you have felt that you have had no control over the matter, or you have felt like you are at fault for something that happened or did not happen. I would highly recommend reading Ted Chiang's stories, his collection Stories of Your Life, as well as Exhalation. Other than the titular story in this one, Hell is the Absence of God is a wonderful, wonderful story about the same thing: free will, determination, and just love. So thank you, Dee, for letting me join in on this.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia, my channel is Birdie in the Books, and first and foremost I'd like to thank Dee for asking me to collaborate in this lovely video for the purposes of mental health. And the book for me that I go to the most when I am going through something is Persuasion by Jane Austen. It's basically a second chance romance, but they were persuaded, hence the title, to not marry each other when they were young and they first fell in love. The reason this is so important to me is this was the first romance book I think I ever read. I read this when I was 10. My mom bought me this original copy. It's very old now, as you can see the yellowing pages. But I go back to it time and time again. I reread the letter. For any Janeites out there, they will know exactly what I'm talking about. And I just love the idea of getting a second chance at anything. And even if you're going through something difficult, you can have a second chance, or you can divert that to something that you're supposed to be doing. And I hope this helps anybody going through something, mental or otherwise. Pick up any type of Jane Austen. My recommendation is Persuasion because it is my favorite, but any of her works will do.
Thanks, Con. I want to thank Dee for inviting me on to chat about a book that has had a positive impact on my mental health for Mental Health May. And I think the book that really stood out for me as helping me just see the world in a new light and just changing the way I viewed everything and improve the quality of my life was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. So I read this at some point many years back when I was in college, and I remember just being entranced by the philosophical ramblings and musings of Robert Pirsig and combining it with this very cozy kind of memoir style narrative where he's fixing up his motorcycle and going on this cross-country trip with his son, traveling on the same motorcycle, and then with some other friends. It was so just grounding, and I felt like I was learning how to kind of live in the moment and be very intentional, and just imparting some really important quality of life lessons for me that really did stick with me on and on afterward. And there's just all sorts of interesting philosophical things going on here, exploring what makes for quality in terms of art and writing, and there's just a lot of things that made me think. But I think it overall just had a very positive impact on my own mental health, and I think would be a wonderful read for most people, which is so unique in combining different kinds of memoir narratives and philosophical writing into one just very readable book. It is such a memorable read in my life.
Thank you so much for inviting me to share about a book that helped me through a rough time. To be honest, I'm not somebody who usually gravitates towards books when I'm going through a rough emotional patch. Usually, I'm more likely to gravitate towards other creative endeavors, such as drawing or writing or even just talking to someone. But there was a time right before I started my channel when I was going through a really difficult time. I was going through an injury and found it really difficult to enjoy anything, to enjoy the books I was reading, until I picked up Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson. Now, this book did not magically make my pain go away. It did not heal me from my injury, but I feel like this book helped me process a lot of the difficult emotions that were coming up for me during that time, especially as I was very inactive or had to be. And for that reason, it was very cathartic. I think that the depth of the writing, the depth of the prose, and the human experience, and the theme of compassion. I know we talk about that theme a lot in Malazan circles, but I think you really see that theme come to the forefront in Memories of Ice. So there are a lot of dark things that happen in this book, but like I said, it brought up a lot of what I feel like I needed during that time. And even though I wouldn't want to go back and relive that injury, I'm grateful to be recovered from that experience. I'm actually kind of grateful when I look back on that experience because I feel like I grew a lot during that time. I went deep inside of myself. I feel like I learned some things I needed to learn, perhaps. And this book was part of that journey. It was part of that experience I needed to go through. So for that reason, I'm very grateful for Memories of Ice, and I'm very grateful to you, Dee, for inviting me to share about my experience.
Just from my own life experiences, being able to talk about some solutions I've found through reading to help with depression and mental health in general is something that I'm always happy to do and will always be happy to do. So there are 3 books I would like to recommend that helps with mental health. The first one is The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And I also pair that with The Enchiridion of Epictetus. Now, these books talk on Stoic philosophy. Some of the 5 lessons I learned from Stoic philosophy in The Enchiridion of Epictetus and The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. The first one, confine yourself to the present. Regardless of whether you are feeling pain or you're feeling pleasure, it's always better to be in the present. It only gets worse if you're constantly thinking about the future and worrying about it. Thinking about the past and the mistakes you've made and, hammering yourself about it in that kind of mental state is also not healthy. It could just make the situation worse. So if you're a religious person and you want to do it through prayer, or you want to do it through meditation, or you want to do it through just like, focusing on the little things here and there, staying in the present is very, very important. Control what you can. Your first place of control is your mind. Everything else outside is to some level outside your control. Controlling what you can is very important, and leaving the things you can't control out of mind is just as important. When you control your mind, you get a little bit control of your external circumstances. You can think about it like in a circle, and like the more you focus on what you can control, the wider your circle of control increases. And after a while, if you feel more in control than out of control, then you're able to alleviate some of the feelings of depression and negative mental illness. Again, I'm talking from my experience. Number 3 would be embracing impermanence. Everything you see is perspective, not truth. Everything you hear is opinion, not fact. Embracing impermanence lets you understand that during bad times and during good times, that feeling or that moment is going to pass. So it makes not just logical but emotional and mental sense to not believe that you're going to feel the way you're going to feel forever. Things are always going to change. In good times, you understand that this too shall pass. In bad times, you also understand that this too shall pass. Number 4, as human beings, we are all universally connected. Your existence itself is playing a role in the interconnectedness of humanity, and sometimes just knowing that can make you feel less lonely and less isolated from everything going on. Number 5, gratitude. This, I would say, sometimes is the most difficult thing, but basically gratitude is so important. Just write one thing that you feel grateful for and think about it. Really, really think about it. If you can write 2 things, write 2 things. If you can write 3 things, write 3 things. It doesn't have to be like an extensive list. That could lead to a snowball effect of alleviating you of these feelings. You can be grateful for the fact that you are alive. You can be grateful for the fact that you have food in your fridge. If you don't have friends that can understand how you feel and can talk you out of feeling so bad, you can be grateful that you have friends that are trying anyway. You can be grateful for a girlfriend. You can be grateful for your children. You can be grateful for the fact that you're healthy. There's always something to be grateful for. I know it might be very difficult if you're feeling depressed or you're in a low mental state, but it's very important to be able to highlight those things. I know I just talked a lot about Stoic philosophy, and I hope that these things will be able to help you. Remember, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius and the Enchiridion of Epictetus. Those are 2 books that basically highlight all the things that I've spoken about previously. The third one, I'll keep it really brief, is the Book of Disquiet. That one is a very, very talented and genius writer talking about his feelings of loneliness. And for me, this might not be something that would necessarily help everyone else, but you know me, I like things that are a little bit twisted. For me, when I read the Book of Disquiet during a depressive state of mind, like a friend of mine had just passed away, I was able to empathize with the feelings of loneliness that the writer was talking about in his book. And he's such a talented writer, and his prose is one of the best that I've ever read. So I was able to, feel like this experience of feeling alone and feeling left behind and feeling just dejected and depressed is something that other people go through. I've always come out a better person, like after being depressed, whether I improve on aspects of myself that I just couldn't ignore, which triggered my depression, or I was able to, look critically at my environment and learn what was working for me or what was not working for me. So, going through a bad mental state or depression is something that you can come out of the other end a much better person. And hopefully that is your experience. Thank you, Dee, for making me a part of this. I'm really grateful for that. Don't forget to stay epic. And peace.
Hi guys, bit of a different face on this channel. I just wanted to pretty much put a 2p piece in from my end. with it being Mental Health Month, I suffer with a few mental health problems. I have depression, anxiety, a plethora of other things. But a book that helped me and has taught me quite a bit is a book called Almond, and it's by this author. And unfortunately I don't speak Korean, but this is the author. And in this book you meet Yunjae, he's called, and he suffers with a brain condition called alexithymia, and it's something that he struggles to show certain emotions, and unfortunately a tragedy happens in his family. Quite upsetting, really. And not only that, he's in school, so he's roughly, for the Brits we would say roughly, I think he's roughly about year 8, year 9 for high school, and I think it's, quote me if I'm wrong, grade 11 for Americans, in middle school. So it'd be like their second year in middle school. And in school he meets someone, he meets a friend, and he is called, if you give me a second, Gon. 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 And once he arrives, Yunjae is showing him how to, to deal with their certain emotions, and teaches him how it's okay to feel these emotions. And it's very much teaching, and it's very much sharing, and it's amazing, absolutely amazing. But I wanted just to put this story out there, and this book, sorry, because it's taught me that if you can't speak to anyone, if you're struggling to get a word out to family, professionals, if you can meet that one person, that group of people that you were close enough to call friends, and in my instance I have a group of friends that I'm close to that I call family. They're my second family. I have friends abroad, but because I've known them for 3 years, I speak to them every day pretty much. Obviously everybody's life is a bit different, so we talk when we can. But I just wanted to add as well the fact that you don't have to have just a friend abroad as well. I have friends in the UK as well, and when they've known that you're being a bit down, they'll invite you for a coffee. They'll have a chit chat as well for you. I mean, a friend of mine took me to a concert, and it was the best concert ever. I mean, it was Bring Me the Horizons and Bad Omens. I've been listening to Bring Me the Horizon for, oh God, I think it's 13 years. I was back to being a teenager, and honestly, this book has taught me that friendship is way more important than what anybody else would think. If you've got that close set of friends, then you know that if you can't speak to anyone, like I said, professionally, family, that you can just go straight to them and they'll be an ear, and they'll tell you that they love you at the end and you're doing well. Because at some places you need that. And from family it's nice to hear from family. But it feels a little bit different when it's from friends. Oh, that's from me personally. It feels different from friends than it does from family. I love my family. I'm not saying that I don't at all. It's just a different feeling. If, again, this book is amazing to teach you that there is people out there that will help. If it's your friends, they will help. And if you can't speak to anyone, maybe the friends are the way to go. But I hope anyone who watches this can look at this book and just have a read of the back. And if it grabs your fancy, give it a read. It's a beautiful book. If it doesn't, perfectly fine. But yeah, that is my go-to mental health book choice for May of 2024. So thank you very much. Thank you guys for being on the video as well. Thanks, Mum. Speak. Please don't hide. it doesn't do any help. It really, really doesn't. Anything. If there is anything, speak to someone. Please.